Okay, so welcome to another TROM-Cast. This time we are going to talk about abundance. And Dima, if you want to talk a little bit about it until I set up some stuff here. If you can hear me.
Hello. Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me, guys.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah, so tonight's topic is abundance and why it's important and why it's not. And like in the future, I feel for the resource-based economy, then abundance is one of the keys we need to achieve in order to arrive on the such society where all the resource can be equally shared, and why it's important. And yeah, I don't really know how to start this talk.
Yeah.
The thinking, the idea why it's so important, and then I always, why to have the abundance and equal right and share of the resources and opportunities is so important. And I always remember the story about the cows. So let's say when you look at the cows, they're always, so calm. They're just eating their grass, and it seems they don't never have fights, or because there's a lot of food for them. So they're really calm and kind of live in peace. But then in a situation there's not enough, they start fighting. Or let's say if you want to feed them with something like with some fruit, which is they usually don't have, they will start fight over it. And so like for me it's the same analogy with the humans. The more unequal, the more inequality, in our society, the more there are problems, and it always will be like one will be on the top, and other will be forced to serve him or to kind of adjust their behavior only because somebody other have more resources, money, opportunities, and so on. So by providing abundance for everyone, we kind of guarantee equal rights to anyone, basically. Yeah. So that's my intro.
No, I would completely agree with that. And linking or discussing a future why we should have abundance is directly linked to the problems today that we face because of scarcity. And you can see that in more unequal societies and in more scarce societies, there's more corruption, more war, and greater levels of violence. And if you provide access abundance to people and give them the resources, then there will be less violence and less crime and less corruption, and so on. So based on those external factors as well.
And you guys can take it from here because I have to set up some stuff and then I will get.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first question that comes to mind is, how can you achieve abundance, and what does that really mean?
Yeah, for sure. Because you can today we already have kind of an abundance. So it's like it's creating like access abundance, so access to those goods. This is somebody's mic.
What happened?
Hello.
I think we're on.
No,
Figure okay, cassette. You can go.
All right. No, my point was just that it seems like today we have already like an abundance in a way of goods. We have more than enough food to go around. It's just about creating like an access to those goods and needs. So it's about changing the rules of the game. And within today's trade-based game, we have artificial scarcity. So we have actually more than enough to go around already, and we have an abundance of resources. It's just about designing a game or a world in which people have access to those resources that they need, and so on.
I think sometimes it's hard for people to get their head, around that idea, because they're so used to, living in a world that's so, well, apparently scarce with, with almost any resource, because we're basically fighting over the resources that we need to survive by having to, trade our skills for money, and then, basically struggling to survive just to get the stuff we need. So last time I tried to explain this to somebody, they basically said, Oh, but that's impossible. We'll never have an abundance of, everything that we'll need. It's just impossible. So at that point, I put on the table, okay, well, take a look at food. We have more than enough food for everybody. I definitely have an abundance of the capability to have an abundance of food for everybody on the planet. But there's millions of people dying of starvation still every year, and it's 50% or more of our food is being thrown away. The issue isn't that we can't have abundance of food; it's that there's something wrong with the system. You know?
And I think like people wrongly assume that abundance means almost like a waste of resources, and it's like everybody has a home, everybody has a car, everybody has a fridge, a kitchen, a whatever big land, and so forth. And I think this is the biggest misunderstanding if you talk to people about abundance, because abundance should not mean that. It should not mean, because you don't have a Google server in your basement. If that would be crazy, You just access Google servers or whatever. You don't have to have your production line to make clothes at home or to make we make food at home, like we talked when you talked about technology. But even that will change in the future more and more. So I think that's a very important point. We don't need a car for everyone. You need a transportation system that will be able to allow us to travel without just allow us to travel, not have a car and park it, have a parking lot. The example that I always give is with shopping carts. I always give this example because it's so ridiculous. Imagine if all of us had a shopping cart at home and we had to take care of it, pay insurance, and have a parking lot. That would be completely stupid and ridiculous. But why do you have cars when they stay 97% of the time stay parked and not used? So that is a very important point to point out. About abundance doesn't mean a lot more stuff. It in many cases it means less stuff.
Yeah. That's actually interesting you say that, because what they're predicting for like Teslas and stuff right now is that these self-driving cars or whatever, they're not going to park in the cities anymore because it's more worth it to drive around self-piloting and take the wear and tear than pay $5-10 to keep your vehicle there.
Nice.
So it's just like it's the profit motive going directly kind of against abundance in that sense, where you can kind of think like food that doesn't even reach us. Like a majority of the waste isn't happening at consumer level. It's happening before it even is an option for us to purchase it out of a store, because it's people won't buy the blemished apples, or they'll sell at a less rate. So it's like, why even waste shipping them out? Let's just leave them on the ground or deal with them another way. And that's just completely lost. And something that's like, if you're not aware of that or not looking out for that, you'd never know what's happening. And that's just,
I think we have to clarify what we mean by abundance. Like when we say the abundance. So from our perspective, the way I see the abundance, not that we have a lot of stuff here, like you said, but by abundance we mean equal access to basically all the needs human might have. That's the abundance of the access.
Yes,
exactly.
Abundance of access, I think, is what you're looking for there. It's the same thing applies with the transport, where it's like, you don't need that thing sitting out there on any time. It's like you just want a ride somewhere when you want it. So it's like, now we got Uber and you might wait like 2-3 minutes, but the same thing with self-piloting cars. It's just like you're pinging it, and a nearby vehicle, not your designated vehicle that could be on the other side of the city, but just a nearby vehicle. It's more efficient to just grab you and escort you wherever.
Completely.
Accessing instead of owning, for example. Instead of own, you go towards access. That's the idea.
This is hard. Yeah. This is also hard for people to imagine, because what they imagine is, putting today's humans into a world like that.
Yeah.
And if you put today's humans who are, just craving attention, craving stuff, to off to each other, basically, then you will have a lot of problem in such a world. I really like what Oh, actually, I don't remember if it was the money game or
I think it was
one of the other
the
games.
property of waste.
Yeah, where you talked about the natives that went to this documentary, natives that went to Manchester, and you couldn't just throw these, native people into a city and expect them to function, the way normal people, the way modern day people function in cities. You have to teach them how the system works. You have to teach them, they can't just kill pigeons on the street. They can't just, shit wherever they want. They need to learn how this system functions. And that's the same for what we're talking about. We can't put today's people into the world that we're talking about. We need to teach them how it functions first. So the main point is their values need to shift. And when you give, today's people, the idea that, oh, we can live in a world of abundance, all of a sudden they think, oh, I'm gonna have the best iPhones, I'm gonna have all these cool clothes, I'm gonna have all this awesome stuff, jewelry, No, that's not what we mean by abundance. So that's the challenge, as I see.
Exactly, because if you take those people from those tribes to bring back that into discussion, imagine putting them into New York. Just like put 100 people from a very so-called primitive tribe. I mean, tribes, people who live like in forests, they hunt and so forth. You put them in New York, of course you don't expect them to know how to, pick up a cab or go to the supermarket, go to have a job and do all of that. In the same way, how can we expect that people from this society who are used to trade, to work, give their skills and their time to take something in return, how can these people function in a society that we talk about, like in an abundant kind of society? That's why you have to explain what we mean by that. It's not like you lack something. You don't lack something. You shouldn't lack something. But it's also about values. Values have to change because some people may say, yeah, but I lack my jewelry. I want to have more jewelry. I want to have more cars, So it's a shift of not only infrastructure, but it's a shift of education. And that's important.
I think that's the constant conclusion we have here on all our discussions. It's always about values.
Yeah, I mean, because that's basically, what this movement has to be about.
Yeah.
There's no way we'll get there without a shift in values.
Because take a disease or something that we don't have a cure for. Like, again, take Alzheimer, for example. Alzheimer is not a problem in the way that we think. It's a physical problem that we have to solve. But this problem of society and how to organize ourselves, we have the technology, we have the means. Of course, it's a problem in here, inside this, in the mind of people. If everyone agreed, like a miracle tomorrow, that we have to share everything, we will have more than enough for everyone. That's why it's a shift in the way that we think, that people think.
So then the question is how to make this shift collectively, Like right now we're a bunch of hippies who have this strange beliefs, but then how can you make this mainstream? I mean, when such discussions will be not on YouTube and just a bunch of people watching, but really on national TVs, for example, or on some mainstream channels, and instead of celebrities in music or in sport, we would have the thinkers, at least, or the scientists or the guys who do something. And looking at today's realms, I think the only way is to make them somehow, to make from them profit. If you can make profit from such talks, then it will be, popular. How to make the shift, I have no clue.
Then we'll be cool because
Yeah.
because we'll be rich.
Because you'll be rich, you'll be cool, and everybody will listen to you.
Yeah, that's the problem. And I always thought it was funny. Well, I don't know about you guys when you went to school. I remember thinking about the fact that in school the smart kids were not cool. If you were smart, you were not cool. And I remember thinking about that. Like, there's no way in real life that's when I grow up that's gonna be how it is. In a sense, it kind of is. You know, it's not important to be smart. It's important to have money and look cool, and then people will listen to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like
Because
social.
that's our value.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because even when we talk about a world of abundance, even the richest people today will have a lot more and than in such a world. And I think most people will fail to understand this. Will be like, come on, that's impossible. But that's what we are talking about. You know, living better than even the richest of today. Because today, due to the fact that we hoard stuff in pockets like that, the scientific discoveries are slower or are very much manipulated by money. The environment gets destroyed. I mean, no rich human being can somehow pay its way through climate change, for example. It has to be a global initiative, or to the massive amount of waste, or the research, you know, like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was one of the richest human beings in the world, and he died. He died of pancreatic cancer because there was no solution for no treatment for pancreatic cancer, and the main reason is because there are not a lot of funds invested into that, because there is no profit. Very few people have pancreatic cancer. So when he got sick, what could he do? Absolutely nothing, because you need years and years of, for example, scientific research and trials to come up with a solution for a disease. So you cannot pay your way, even if you are rich. Yes, you can pay your way in certain ways, but if we could create a society like we talk about of true abundance, then even the richest will profit a lot more than they profit today.
Completely. Because even the so-called rich today, like you talk about, like Steve Jobs and so on, they are such victims of the stresses of society. So the whole system is cancerous. And most of these diseases are also caused because of this predatory environment where people are constantly fighting against each other. And it's a very stressful thing as well to become rich, because you have to submit to the rules of the game, which means that you're going to be fighting and competing against other people and constantly watching your back. And it's a very unhealthy position to be in, and you're bound to resort to all kind of different addictive behaviors and ways of compensating, and all kind of different diseases will creep up on you as well. So the rich today are really not rich at all, because most of their behaviors are very egocentric and stressful and and predatory. Yeah.
They are
And
materialistic.
I would argue that, yeah, sorry. I would also argue that, I mean, I don't think that most, multi-millionaires or billionaires are happy, and satisfied. Because I mean, I wouldn't, I wouldn't think so. But for me, I mean, that's not where happiness comes from. It doesn't come from hoarding stuff, having money. So
Yeah.
they're still just playing this game and trying to survive, and I don't know, trying to prove something to someone else. Because if you didn't have to, if you didn't have to do that, then wouldn't you just give all your money away and help as many people as possible? I mean,
It is
for me, I wouldn't ever trade my lifestyle for any amount of money. I wouldn't, if somebody gave me $1 billion, I wouldn't stop doing what I'm doing right now. And so I think real happiness is inside. It's in what you're doing.
yeah, because it's that
the
saying
relationships
that
you have.
happiness is a state of mind. So that's
Yeah,
what it is.
exactly. And you don't need. Yeah, and the more money you have, like it doesn't help that state of mind at all. And people are constantly chasing it. That's all they're doing is just chasing this money because they think that it leads to happiness, but it doesn't. And they figure that out. Maybe some of them figure it out eventually, but maybe most of these people just go around chasing it their whole life. And especially millionaires because they want to continue to make this money. And yeah, and I'll
For
tell you
sure.
actually from my dad's experience. So I'm originally from Soviet Union, so my dad, grew up equal with everybody in Russia. And in the 90s, he made a business, and he became a millionaire. He got a lot of money. That's how he was able to get us to the States from Russia. But nothing changed. He said that nothing changed for him because he continued to do the same thing he was doing all the time. He would just go to work, and then all of a sudden he started making a lot of money. But he didn't change his lifestyle. He just continued to go to work, and all of a sudden he had more money, so he could buy more stuff. but that stuff didn't really change, his happiness or whatever, and then eventually he lost it all, and now he's got basically nothing, and still nothing really changed because he didn't change his lifestyle, so no matter how much money you have, if you're continuing this lifestyle where you're working, a job that you're not satisfied with, or if you're not doing, whatever you're really, passionate about in life, then it's not going to make a difference how much money you're going to have.
Yeah. For sure.
So looking, looking at all those benefits for the rich people we just now propose, why they don't give up all of their money and change their values?
And give it to Trump.
Yeah. I think it's not only about happiness or purpose in life, or how to explain it. So you all said, and I kind of agree partly on that the richest people will have in abundant world will be much richer than they are now, but they're also losing something really valuable for them. It's control, power, and the statism, or the state of power, when they can control where other people can bow to them, when they can basically leading by their own ideas or ego, do a lot of stuff, do a lot of influential stuff, which influence millions and millions of people, that control state. So, and I think that's one of the main point where you, with what you are fighting, or we are fighting, against those people, because they don't want to give up these positions of privilege.
Maybe because they don't know any other alternative. That's what they know. And I've watched several documentaries about rich people, and I read about a few of them. And to me, even from hearing from them, they are quite empty inside, because even though they control the other ones around them, they know that people are fake to them. I mean, they're not that stupid, most of them, I've realized. And they understand that, it's even very difficult to have friends, to have a functional family. So maybe they don't know about any other alternatives. And because we may ask ourselves, like, why aren't they donating money to maybe such organizations like TROM and promoting such a lifestyle that we talk about, if they will live better than they live now? And to me, it's like, that's why they are rich, because they think differently. Like, that's why they are in that position. So it's quite a doesn't make sense, the question, in a sense, because they wouldn't be rich if they were thinking like that.
For sure.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, go on. Whatever wants.
No, I was just going to add that in order for anybody to think the way like we think, maybe, and are more inclined into understanding trauma and looking into it and these types of values, you have to kind of be hurt by the system, not participate in the system, and look for other things as well. Otherwise, you will never arrive at such a way of thinking and be curious in the first place. You will immediately have like cognitive biases and dismiss ideas immediately because they're attacking your means of survival, which is to operate in this trade world, and you get all the reinforcement. So I know that with most people who I know who operate within this system, and it's difficult for them to step out of it mentally because they're so deep in it. So it's near to impossible.
Yeah, most people don't even see another alternative. They're going to...
The way I see it, it's for such people in such position of power or of richness. For them, they see no reason to step back and now share this, privilege, let's say, or position of power with everybody else. Like for us, because we're 99.9%, of course, it's a cool idea. Yeah, everyone will be equal. But for them, why they should? Their life is cool. They have everything what they need, what they want, and they can influence a lot. Why to share?
So that's encouraging. They are 1%, so fuck them. Yeah. I mean, if they don't agree.
But they control all other 99.
Yeah, I know, but we need the under 99% or not that much, but we need, I don't think such messages that we do here are for rich people. I don't think, I agree. I don't think they will change their minds, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the way I see it is kind of moving away from the system, more people moving away from the system because they see a personal benefit to it. Um, so, for example, working less. You don't have to work so much. Don't embed yourself into a full-time job, and concentrate, figure out ways you can do that. That's basically what I'm trying to explain in the blog, how you can do that. And separate yourself as much as you can from the system. And once you get benefits from this, experiences and friendships, then you'll be filled, not with materialistic goods and things that you can buy with money, but with real things that make you actually happy. And maybe if more and more people can do this, then then fuck the 1% and we don't need them. No, Dima.
Nah, it's a cool way of living your own life. It's super fulfilling and super interesting, but it's not gonna change the society. It's the way like you can think about in every field actually. When there is a homeless person sitting and begging for money, and millions of people are passing him, and he may also think, wow, if just everyone who passing throw me 1 cent, it's nothing. Everyone can do it. I would be rich. I would be out of here and I would buy a house after 2 days. But it's never happened. And it's in every field. The same usage just described if everyone would go. So, but and
Yeah.
start to travel and live their own life, not working, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah. I don't mean it like that really. I meant more like having it more of a thing, right? Something that people talk about. So something that people can see is possible, and just bringing these ideas out in different ways, not just that, not just like fuck a
Like
job.
the way I see
But
there are a strict difference between what you can do for your own fulfillment or for your own benefits to improve your maybe the life of few people around you, like your friends or some audience. You can reach some small amount of people, and then there are other actions which can influence like things on a larger scale globally or something. And the way I research, I just really dig into this topic right now for the past few months, and I can see some good examples of personal actions we can change a lot of things. There are some, but it's very, very limited and few. So mainly our personal actions don't mean nothing except our own benefits, or kind of.
So what can we do then to change the structure of society to bring abundance?
I don't know.
I think it's a separation here between how a world of abundance could look like and how can we arrive there, how can we implement it. And of course this is always the question, how can we implement such kind of society. And I think we discuss like maybe every TROM-Cast about this, and of course there is not one answer. I have no idea. I don't think anyone has any idea how this will work out. I have no idea. You can give some shots and say maybe spread an idea, and this idea will spread to many minds, and people will push it through politics or through technology or so forth. But it's, of course, it's complicated. That's why maybe the solution in a way is going back to the presenting how this kind of world should look like, because maybe that kind of it gives you an idea of, or it's influencing other people to come with solutions of how to implement it. Like if you talk about world of abundance and explain how the world of abundance is, I mean, probably that's the only way to talk about such future. I mean, how can you approach this if you want to change the society? You should go to people and talk about this idea, right? Because they don't even know what you're talking about. What do you want to change? And I think that's what we should focus more on. Like, let's explain what we mean by abundance and how this world can look like. How to implement it, I have no exact clue.
Yeah, if you want to talk about something and inspire a lot of people, you have to talk bullshit. You have to be, super entertaining and grabbing attention a lot if you want to reach masses. Other than that, it's just always will be a niche of some, people with common interest.
Depends. I have no idea. Maybe
Can you give me an example which reach like global audience? Some
look the
inspirational.
example that you gave me, Gandhi, for example. He had no social media platform or managers, and he could still spread some messages. I don't agree that his message was the good message, because he was like, let's be non-violent. But being non-violent is just a result of the environment. You cannot superimpose that on people. So if you have like a Gandhi in such a way in today's world that can influence people and talk about like trade is the source of most problems and we have to get rid of it, and maybe we should create an abundant world, something may happen. I don't know, but that's the only way that I see it.
Yeah.
And again, if you look at the Gandhi, at first it seems he achieved a lot, but actually, instead of throwing away English, I would say not English society, but occupation of England, the English persons they keep their businesses there and they basically control us there. So they still control India from like under the curtains. So kind of from a broad perspective, it seems they changed, they become free, from occupation, but in reality not. And and it's really sad to see and admit that. Sorry.
Yeah. But I mean, that was because the message that he was getting across was not to get a trade, It's like Theo said.
No, but his main idea was to make India free from the British Empire. That was his main goal. All his life he put toward it, and by the end of the life he achieved that, and then he was disappointed.
Yeah, because I still agree that of course, I agree that his message was not even practical in my view, from what I know. It was mostly like, we have cancer, let's operate on the patient and take the cancer away, but the cancer comes back. Of course, he achieved that through this kind of surgery to eliminate those people, but because he didn't address in any way the root cause here, the environment that produces such behaviors, that those British want to occupy India because of the same reasons, trade, because they had all kinds of motives there to do that. Because you don't address that, of course you are going to lose even if you win. So I don't think I keep that in mind.
Yeah, then he's not a good example.
No, he's an example of, he wanted to do something and he achieved to spread the message. That was the idea, right? He achieved to spread the message and for people to listen to him. That's the idea.
Completely. And I can see how it can definitely snowball further. Like, I know how people have influenced me, like, for example, Jacques Fresco to a significant extent, and has now made me participate here. And the same with you guys. I'm sure many people have inspired you. And I definitely believe that it is possible to change millions of people, if not billions of people. It's, of course, maybe unrealistic in some regards, but even super rich people would also be open to such ideas if it's presented in the right manner and in the right format. I saw that Roxanne Meadows as well, she went to Dubai, I think, for a presentation there or conference. She was invited by the sheikh there to talk about future economies and be like presenting as well a resource-based economy and stuff like that. So I think it is possible. Of course, you might have to do it in a much more entertaining way, maybe, or submit to partially maybe to the rules of the game in terms of making things more clickbaity. But there are definitely ways of reaching people. And I think this concept of trade free is really tackling the core and making it much more easily digestible and understanding all these concepts.
Yeah.
But what do you think people will take you a lot of seriously when you start to play by the same rules? If you start to propose like a serious topic in an entertaining way, of course there could be a balance, but I think it's not so easy to achieve.
for me, one example that Cody, you can say, because like.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, I think the perfect format for what you're talking about there is like taking seriousness, but like somehow making it entertaining is satire. So like seeing, if you ever saw Stephen Colbert do his political pundit, what was it? I forget who he played, but just some over-the-top Republican, like just absolutely like kind of making an ass of himself, but it's presented in like he's presenting both sides. He's masters of both the Democratic side and the Republican side, because he has to know how it's going to be funny for the audience that he's presenting his spun idea to. And it's a very powerful way, because you're making a person, I think the vulnerability comes from making the person laugh, but it's kind of like for somebody who it may be a new piece of information, it's almost like there's like a revelation happening inside of them. It's like, oh, when you put it that way, when it's funny to me, and it's like, oh, that is kind of ridiculous. Like it almost like if the idea was here and it was like you can't challenge it, it's like satire like brings it into the battlefield and can just obliterate just the amount of ideas that person changed in me alone, and just the way you can frame a topic is extremely powerful. And then adding like, you know, there's laughter behind it, so it's a friendly social, like it's almost everything you could want. And that's kind of something I'm trying to figure out, you know, where's my place in all this kind of thing, because it's like I want to be funny, I want to move these ideas around because it's good for everyone, and I care about, you know, my brothers and sisters across the world, and you know, everything that I need to survive. I'm just this one little piece kind of thing.
Like nothing happened. Good. Okay, so I had no idea what you guys were talking about, because my computer was like.
So we went to satire. We went to comedians, kind of as humor as or satire as a communication tool, an effective communication tool. And then George Carlin, and then Stream Drop. So, and then George Carlin, just kind of how he started off at almost like you'd almost say it was like base level economy, where so it was the 7 dirty words, you know, shit, piss, whatever. But that's something that it's like interesting, like 90% of people can relate to like that kind of thing. And then but by the time that he had ended his, you know, by the time he died and everything, that he was almost completely political, cynical, just the transformation that happened to that energetic, you know, 7 silly words you can't say until like, these cocksuckers and their laws, and you know, just almost seeing an old man kind of go through the throes of life. And evolve his opinion, and just a person that people got to evolve with, and that was very it wasn't like an abrasive person. It was like, yes, he was a strong kind of presence, but not like a scary or one you were fearful of.
I agree with this idea that to satire and to comedy. I also think that you know, you cannot fix cancer just by informing people about it. You need big organizations. You need a lot of investment in terms of resources and knowledge. You need all kinds of institutions. So I think that's the step that we have to move towards. Because, you know, even if you achieve your success and you become very, very popular and you transmit a message, of course you really need something to change that, to change the infrastructure. Maybe a government, maybe someone with a lot of money. But again, we are shifting the discussion into like, what should we do? And we didn't talk much about abundance, because what I had in mind from this TROM-Cast was like, how could we achieve abundance of, like, say, from technology to food, from clothes to apartments, you know, how could such a world look like? And if you want to add something to the previous topic, basically add it, and then we can move towards that if you want.
Yeah, I think it's our usual discussion. It's 3D printing, automatization, free source, and so on.
Yeah, but think about, like, I had this idea of take phones and computers. In order to make them abundant, how can you achieve that? And I gave an example of instead of every phone having inside it like a processor and video card and so forth, you basically make these devices that only receive the signal like a TV, and you have big servers all around the world, and it will distribute the power to whoever wants to do something like Google does with servers, or Facebook, or that's how most websites work. So that was one idea of how you can make an abundant world in terms of smartphones or laptops without having too much stuff, actually with having less stuff to put into those devices. So these are the kinds of ideas that maybe I want to bring forward.
Another idea could be by making things upgradable, so you don't always have to replace it and buy something new. And that would, of course, as well play into the market forces not being there and planned obsolescence not being a thing and so on. So you can just, instead of having to purchase a new thing or something like that, or get or receive something else, it's just continuously upgradable. And there are such phones that you can pull it out and put a new chip in or whatever.
Yeah, not having that mentality that you need a new phone every year.
I think your microphone is very, very low.
Sorry. I was just saying, and not to have that mentality where, you know, you need a new phone every year. You know, just because you already have a good one. It works, you know, it's meant to last, and that's the one that you need because of the function. You know, same with
Yeah, but Sasha, my phone doesn't have a foldable OLED screen, so I need to drop $1,600 and be cool with my friends.
Yeah, that's the issue. You're not cool enough.
I'm so like when I see such things, I'm
That's
like,
why not
what the fuck?
Other thing, it's also sharing mentality. Like in consumer-based society, we're pretty much always running to acquire more things and everything. You know, to have my own, to have my personal things, and my custom-made thing for me and everything. But even such simple things like sharing a washing machine, for example. If you live in a house where there are several flats, why each flat should have a washing machine? You use it once, or I don't know, 2 times a month, maybe, you know. So you can have it somewhere in the basement, and there are some buildings and some communities who do this, and that's like perfect example. You can reach abundance much faster and much easier in such way of sharing, and it applies to everything, to car sharing and instrument sharing, and actually instrument sharing is so also such a great idea. If you've got some kind of tools, an instrument, like, you know, like to physically fix something or create something, also how often do you use them, or, you know, to drill a holes? And there are some activity centers popping up, which where you can go. Sometimes you need to pay some symbolical fees, usually not expensive, but you can go there, and you can have access to all various kinds of tools and instruments, and you can fix or repair something. And yeah,
I really like you know, the thing about TROM is that it brings out these, you know, what people see as like a radical idea, that, you know, ownership is not actually, you know, it's only in our imagination. You know, you don't actually own anything. You know, you're gonna die, and all the stuff you thought you owned is gonna be on Earth. You know, and you never really owned it. You just thought you owned it, and everybody else thought you owned it. So that can change, and that needs to change too.
I think in the future, this idea of owning will be like a nightmare, because you'll think like, in the past you have to own something, like to take care of it, to take care of that car, to take care of that apartment. It's a lot of stress, and even in today's world, you have to pay lots of money to own them. You don't just own them. You cannot just own a car. You are forced to pay an insurance for that car. No one will let you drive the car just because you bought the car. So it's more than owning. It's owning and renting in the same time somehow, in a way of forced tax. Because even if you have a home, you may say, oh, you know, I have a home, that's perfect now. No, it's not that perfect. You have to pay for that home, all kinds of taxes, you know. So even that idea of owning has mutated in a way that it makes more profit for some people, and it takes blood out of you like a vampire.
Yeah, the things you own end up owning you. There's some Carlin for you. So and it couldn't be true. It couldn't be truer. And it's the same idea with like Buddhism, and it's basically, you know, suffering comes from attachment. And I can think like how stressed I'd be, like, oh, my computer parts just like burned up in a fire or something. It's like, oh my, like that's odd. Please no. And it's like you have to detach from that. So it's like I'm trying to get into like a minimalist thing, but it's like I still need to make money, so I still have to keep all these tools and extra parts. And it's like I don't want to, but I need to if I want to continue to exist.
Exactly. How much abundance would be if everyone who hoards at home stuff, from musical instruments to whatever, old laptops, will give them away. I mean, if you could like make a pile, I think it will be a massive pile. I think we can.
Massive.
It's massive, big in the system. Like you explained, you cannot afford to do that. I have a drone. I don't use it. Only like I use it like 2 minutes a month or something. But I cannot afford to just give it away because that's a loss for me. And it sits here in my room. And
The most ridiculous thing I've seen personally is when a huge shop, supermarkets throw away every night so much food. They really throw away, and they prevent people to getting it. They can put paint into it. They can mix it with some sheet, like crystal sheet from the toilets. Yeah, and even some people get arrested for stealing the rubbish, so they put prevent people for getting access for free. And then why? Because they kind of cannot afford it. If they will give out food for free, who's gonna buy it? People just wait there at night when they're gonna throw out and take it. And and this is really sad thing.
because like when I gave another example in the book, why abundance means actually less stuff. YouTube, for example, take YouTube. YouTube doesn't prepare its servers for like all of the 2.5 or 1.5 billion people accessing the same video at once. So it's a distributed thing, meaning that even if you make food, for example, you don't imagine that even if this food is free, like all of 7 billion people will come to take food from one place. It is distributed in a way, like with apartments. You don't need, maybe you need for 7.7 billion people, maybe you only need like 8 billion apartments. You don't need like 20 billion apartments. You cannot imagine that people will live. I'm not sure if I get the message across. You should not prepare. No one prepares for like a supermarket today. Doesn't prepare for. It has like 200 shopping carts, for example. It doesn't think about we have to have a shopping cart for everyone in like 1,000 kilometers area, like thousands of shopping carts. You see, that's how in the future it will be with food. Like you have a city, and should we prepare an abundance of food here? Yes, but abundance means actually maybe less than it is today, because like you said, Dima, supermarkets are throwing away food. So in this system, if they will not do that food, you will think like, okay, we have this surplus of food, we have to distribute it to those who don't have. You understand what I mean? So you don't make a waste.
That's totally, then we need totally different infrastructure. If we take, for example, the same supermarkets, why they have so much stock of food, why they always buying more than they're gonna sell. So they have this in stock, so the people comes and they know for sure there will be this product, and that's the policy of all supermarkets. And then the way you are proposing things, it's more about creating on demand. When there's when the total amount of people calculated, and approximately number how many people can buy, so there is no waste. Or other option is to produce food when there's a request for the food. Let's say I'm ordering something, then it gets prepared in a place and delivered to me, but not before that. So food won't be wasted in such way. But it's totally different, like society structure, infrastructure, everything.
Completely.
To get to the point.
Completely. But I would completely agree that the level of predictability in such a future would be much higher than today, because today it's all based on desires. So, you can't predict too well how many cars are going to be sold in this, because you just want more and more cars to be sold. But if you want to design a functional transportation system, you can predict, okay, this city has this and this amount of people. You're going to design it for each whatever carrying conveyor to have this and this amount of people. So it's much more technical in that sense, and that's how it has to be.
More efficient.
Much more efficient in that regard, and energy saving and so on.
Exactly.
And I think too, I mentioned also in the money game, that people will will understand too that it's not going to be perfect. Today it's like you have these supermarkets, they're competing with each other, so they have to have all these products there. They have to have these fucking donuts. If they don't, the person will go to a different supermarket and they will lose profit. But in a system where you have access, and you can understand that, okay, I don't need this donut, I just need to eat. I need to eat something, and it doesn't have to be, exactly. You can have some mistakes, basically, and it's not going to kill you.
Because that's the thing, I don't think you can ever achieve a total abundance of everything. That's why I gave an examples, like what happens when there is no abundance. Well, if in general it's abundance, there might be some problems depending what are you talking about. You are talking about needs or wants. However, because most of other things will be abundant, if you talk about such a society, then such problems will have a less of an impact, because like Sasha explained, if you have access to so many things and you don't have access to maybe one thing, you don't see it as a huge problem. Only maybe when, say, I give an example of organ transplant, there probably will be like a scarcity of organs, and this is a need, this is not a want, and this could create problems. But even today they are trying to implement a system of access for organ transplant that is not based on profit. Is based on who is more close to the organ, who matches the organ better. So it doesn't matter if you have so much money, you cannot get the organ before other people. So I think we can come up with all kinds of systems like that to deal even with scarcity where there will be scarcity.
For sure.
So maybe we should talk more about what this world would actually look like. So you would see access centers where you can get food, for example, or you can get electronics, clothes.
Yeah, I think it will be more decentralized. I don't think it will be like a center of everything. I think it will be more decentralized in pockets where you can find whatever you may need. Like, and today with the digital world, you don't even have to have like a big storage here. You can have distributed, and if you need something, you order it, and if it's automatic, some robot will bring it to you. Basically, you don't have to move to other places to get what you need.
So we will be passive and lazy.
Because like Jack Fresco explained, always he used the example of libraries. You go to a library and that's kind of the concept. Yeah. But in our world, in this more like modern world, it will be more decentralized in my view.
Exactly. Yeah.
And digitization is a huge part of abundance, because you don't have to produce a billion CDs. You have to produce just one copy of a movie. Digital movie can be streamed on so many computers. You don't have to produce like with 3D printing. It will give rise to, it is already in the process of giving rise of on-demand, like asking for a product and the product will be made without making huge pile of the same kinds of products and then trying to sell them. So.
Guys, how do you think, is it possible to achieve abundant world within monetary system somehow? Like one proposition is universal basic income, for example, or any others approaches.
I mean, with universal basic income, if businesses still function, they're still going to get, the mentality of people isn't going to change. They're going to have some certain amount of money, but they're going to want more because, new phones are going to be thrown at them, new cool clothes that they're going to want to buy. So they're going to try to find a means to make money anyway, to buy these new cool items. So I don't see universal basic income as really helping that much.
No, maybe I'll just give an example of it. Maybe there are some other ways. Like my question is it, how do you think, is it possible to have abundance within the monetary system in any way?
No.
But abundance kind of gets rid of the need to make a profit. Sorry.
Because if you have abundance, then you cannot basically sell stuff. If you have how do you see abundance? What do you mean by abundance? Abundance of stuff reported to the people, or abundance of
No,
stuff?
exactly what we spoke
Yeah,
about.
access.
Like access to things, equal rights, and so on.
If it's not in imbalance, then the system cannot survive, because you always have this cyclical consumption. You have to make money from something, and you have to sell stuff to people all the time. That's why they make the foldable phones now, because they made the bezel-less screens, and now they have to make them foldable, and then in 5 years they will put the buttons back, and people will be like, wow, the retro buttons are back. That's the
Dude,
society.
you're doing excellent in here.
You should start your business.
I think Apple is already having a model of that. The new Apple with the button back, I'm sure.
Revolutionary.
That's why it's not going to work in this society, because people will look like, for example, in terms of digital access, we should have an abundance today of digital access through the not only the what is online, but through the gadgets, because so many people have phones and so forth. Yet, because of our society, this abundant world of information, of ones and zeros, digital world, is put on like behind barriers all of the time. That's
Yeah.
why it costs to use Netflix or
Completely.
Spotify or whatever.
Yeah, completely. I would say that today's world and today's monetary system or trade game we play puts a barrier between the needs of the people and them having access to it. So it creates an abundance of things, whatever, like there are so many empty apartments, but there's so many homeless people. And it just creates a barrier for those homeless people to access those apartments. It creates a barrier for hungry people to access free food. It creates a barrier for people who want to listen to music, but now they have to purchase the music. So there will continuously be growth, and GDP just will be a measure of them producing and consuming more. But there will always be barriers for people's needs not being taken care of and blocked by this trade game.
Yeah, totally agree on all of that.
You're trying to like play the devil's advocate here.
No, I'm just.
That's good. That's
It's
good.
good. It's good. Yeah.
It's just a discussion, like
Yeah,
generally, if it's
For sure.
possible. I'm also consider it's not, because you never can achieve equality between the persons when somebody can have more access, more opportunities than the others. It's no way gonna work.
Completely.
So how will we
And,
make? Okay. Say then that.
No, I just wanted to say something funny. There's this quote about universal basic income that I really like. It goes as follows: universal basic income is like the end of Monopoly, when the guy that's won starts giving you money, so you keep playing, and he can keep taking it.
Yup.
Yeah.
So it's,
That's perfectly put.
so it's just.
That's
very
perfectly
funny.
put. And I use the same example with Monopoly. When people say about universal basic income, I say to them, how do you start the Monopoly board game? All of us equal. You give and then you give all of us, when you go around, you give the same amount of money. And yet, what happens? Huge inequality. And that's happening.
But then speaking about like past societies, for example, we can take USSR, so Soviet Union, and they also had this idea of kind of abundance in some way, but more about equality. Yet the people didn't have any abundance. They had sort of equality if you're not politician, because politicians are higher, they're super race, other are equal. But besides that, there was no abundance, no kind of equality in a sense too.
Yeah, I think like I've seen I read about technocracy, for example, because even USSR was inspired by such a movement, because they were like, let's be technological and let's make one fork, and that fork is the best fork instead of making 1,000 forks. Let's make something very practical. But I don't think that's the way that you have to do it. You cannot force it, and you have to have, like I argue in the book, the Money Game and Beyond, you have to have variety. Like I think the only reason that today's system works, this kind of capitalist system, is because it gives people the illusion of abundance, actually. But it's your problem if you cannot buy that shit, But shit is everywhere. You want to go into a supermarket, it's full. You want to have a Ferrari, you can have it, if you work hard. So they give the illusion of of abundance and of you being the fault here. And why those other systems didn't work? Because a bunch of people wanted to say, we are going to organize the world for you, and that's not a good idea. Let that for a bunch of people to tell you that you only have to have one fork on one pair of shoes. You should never go down this road. You have to make an abundant world that is also full of varieties and people can engage into, and there is more decentralized, like the open source, for example, in terms of software, where I can go and I can make my own Linux distribution, So even if I don't know how to do that, at least you put the blame on me. You say, Theo, if you learn how to do it, you can do it. That's how this system works today. Because they say, if you work hard enough, you can be a millionaire, you can have a big house. And we have to give the same, not an illusion, but the same kind of opportunities in this abundant world for people to engage and to progress and to change the system here and there, if you can get involved.
Yeah, I also see the open source community as a perfect example and how decentralization could work. It's a really amazing idea. It's actually was I think like from my perspective, it's like the only alternative we really have. It's like to make everything decentralized and open source, and people can modify and adjust and create stuff for their own. They're not forced. There's the tools, and you can just either take it what there is or to make it your own. Nobody gonna control you or nobody gonna tell you what to do. It's up to you, and it's such a beautiful idea. The other question which arises, why like having all these ideas today, it's so unpopular. It's really like open source stuff, software. People, if you're on a Linux, you can get a lot of software for free, which is super cool, super useful. It's not worse than all proprietary softwares, yet still it's like 1% of all computers users using Linux. 3%, okay. So why is that? Like Tia, you once said it's perfectly about Linux. It's free and super cool, but nobody uses it.
Yeah.
And why?
Yeah, because Windows is selling computers with Windows and Apple is selling computers with Apple, and they are so big that Linux, has no place because it makes no money out of this.
Yeah, because they basically brainwash people with adverts, with help of influencers, of popular artists or sportsmen, and through the adverts to make some items appear to be cool. And
but in the case of Apple or Microsoft, I wanted to say quickly, in the case of Microsoft or Apple, it's not even about influencers, because they have so much market share. All of the stores are full of their computers, so that's why they are so huge.
It's even hard to buy a computer without any operating system, without Windows or without Mac.
Yeah,
really, it's not so easy. You have to really search.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And people are not even aware of Linux, I would say. Most people are just completely brainwashed by those two big brands and don't see any other option.
Yeah, but it's a very good example with open source because, and I think I want to stress on this, it's very important to let people know that they can get involved, even if it's hard, because I cannot complain. I cannot go to Linux, or there is no place for me to go and say, hey, I want this feature. Why don't you implement this feature? Because they will say, if you want it, implement it. And this is how it's a bomb that you diffuse, and you don't create conflict because of that. And you put the blame in a way on people for them to do and get involved. That's how a society of abundance should look like, not a few people on top saying this is what you should do and this is what abundance I think it should mean,
Exactly.
Okay.
It reinforces engagement, open source. Unlike like a centralized system or pyramid system, it's like passivity. It's they are responsible and we will suffer the consequences and then we will hate on them. Whereas open source is more decentralized and it's like reinforces the people. Shit, I gotta do something about this now, because we are all carry the weight together, and that's a much more collective mindset, which is gonna help a lot.
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
Other question came to my mind: Can we have abundance within political system?
What do you mean?
What does that mean?
Like to having the same politician, the same parties, and the same elections and debates, and putting the same people in charge to make general decisions for large groups of people.
I don't think we can. I mean, if you talk about a society that is sane, I don't think you use democracy to vote on if how we should organize our healthcare or something like that. You will have experts, and whoever is more apt for the job, it usually goes to. Even today, if for things that are made by like or financed by governments, like the healthcare, it's very likely that they know how to organize themselves if it's not a huge financial pressure. I mean, you have such things in place already, like NASA or other organizations. Like, I don't think anyone votes for that, and no one will agree to vote on such things ever.
Mm. It's
I
just
like how Fresco. Yeah.
no, go on.
I like how Fresco talks shit about politicians. Like they don't know anything.
Yeah.
They don't know how to solve problems. Ask them how to feed 7.5 billion people. They don't know clean mode of transportation. They don't know anything. So,
I'm just curious if oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about if we could achieve abundance within our political system. Let's say democracy is the most popular form of governments today. Like I personally think it's not, because even in a democracy, although I don't accept it or don't believe, I don't know how to put it correctly, it's not so clear, it's not so honest, and governments are funded by private companies a lot, and they influence their decisions and the way they build infrastructure and decisions they make, and it's the same business. So like for me, I don't see abundance is possible within democracy or any other
I think you have an abundance.
Yeah.
You have an abundance in politics. You don't have variety.
Yeah.
You don't have what?
Variety.
Variety?
You have abundance so many political parties, like you say, but variety, like they are all the same.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, go on.
No, I was just going to say that I would say abundance maybe exists in terms of having access to all the goods and services people might want within today's world in some selected tribes, maybe. Like, for example, in some small countries or nations, like in Qatar, for example, or maybe in certain small countries in Europe, maybe all the citizens there are granted access to goods and services within the system because they're given like a high degree of economic security and so on. But that's very separate from like viewing everybody as one inclusive species and actually taking care, because they're living on behalf of the rest of the population. So I would say abundance is only possible within like a selected tribe on the expense of everybody else in a way.
Yeah, I mean, politics today is fully integrated into the trade system, so I don't see how it would function when there is abundance. If you have abundance, then if we can't have trade, in the way that it is today, there'll be no use for today's sort of politics.
I think we should also emphasize on the fact that you can have abundance and still have trades. Like YouTube will say we have an abundance of videos, but you have to watch advertising. Even though it's in abundance, you can find everything there. So trade is still a problem. Even if you have abundance, you have to, like, even like Seb was saying, maybe in a country you have an abundance, maybe access to healthcare and stuff like that, but you have to engage into some sort of trade. You have to respect some rules, you have to behave yourself, and so forth. So it's very important, because people say the antidote for this world, the solution, it's abundance. I say yes, but never forget about trade, because there will be many companies who will say we make transportation abundant, like we talked about, but you have to watch advertising and transform into a consumer. We make healthcare abundant, but they take your data and they take money from other sides, from you eventually, or something like that.
Completely. And that's why the trade-free concept is the most important, because you can have access to everything you need, but you will have to submit to the rules that you're playing by, and there will always be conflict whenever there's trade. And yeah.
Is this guy Peter Diamandis, if you know him? I used to read his stuff, and he promoted this idea of let's make an abundance, but he promoted the same kind of abundance of this trade-based world. Like he said, we will travel for free with Google Cars because we watch advertising. We will have access to education online, but you have to give your data away or your attention and so forth. So then I started to see like, okay, this is something like wrong here. This guy is talking about abundance, but he's talking about making a business out of abundance. That was wrong, you know, made me think like, even water, it's abundant, but other companies make you buy, even make me buy many times water, because I don't know.
Or if your water polluted in the area you're living, you know, the prices will go up for the bottled water.
Yeah, that's not a good example, because instead of in this kind of abundant society that is not based on trade, if there is a lack of water, for example, in an area, you make it so that you put pipes and so forth so that everyone has access. Like whenever you open the water faucet, you get water and you drink. In today's world, no, it's a business. You have to put water in some plastic bottles, and you give them to people, you know, which is a backwards way of dealing with resources.
Yeah.
For profit. Okay.
Okay, guys, as usual, the same stuff. Trade. Nothing new. We're like politicians here.
No, but those are good questions. It's always good and important to play the devil's advocate, I think, so we can like cover maybe some more perspectives on things.
And it's also that we don't only talk about. Yeah, you should. We don't only talk about like, oh, this is problem. This is the solution is trade. We also give examples of like how an abundance world would look like with the phones, like with food, maybe like with other things. So we can expand on such things. Because of course, the problem is always that, you know, the trade thing, because that's why this project is relying. It's revolving around. But the details matters, you know, so that people understand in detail the problem and in detail what solutions could be implemented.
Yeah, for example, with clothes, you can produce clothes as well that are hydrophobic and don't wear down. So using much better materials and so on can make a t-shirt last for a week or 2 weeks or maybe even forever. If it doesn't like suck in sweat and stuff like that. I saw there are a couple of t-shirts like that, and you can do the same with shoes and other types of.
But what is interesting,
products,
Seb, what is interesting is that today, I don't think anyone throws clothes away because they're, you know, torn apart, or they buy new ones, you know. So even
you're right.
Even in today's world, they are quite resistant
Yeah.
and are quite resilient. But people have to.
You're right. Completely. It's very funny. It's very funny. That's a good point. And the same thing goes with education. Like we have access to so much knowledge online nowadays, but the trade game we play pushes people to go and pay for education and so on, which is, they will not get much out of it compared to what they could get online potentially.
Yeah, because I mean, the education they pay for, I mean, the institute teaches them how to work a job. Whereas if you go online and, you know, learn whatever we study, it's not going to help you get a job, that's for sure.
I think education is the easiest.
In today's world, it's not about educating people, it's about getting to the job.
Yeah, that's why we already had a discussion on education.
Yeah. To make education abundant,
is not about making people smarter.
Yeah. To make education abundant, I think is the easiest with the online world. It's the easiest out of pretty much everything, because if you make a great course or a great presentation for a website or something, that course can be spread to billions of kids. You know, you don't have to have a teacher in one classroom. And I know that they have this idea when TV became a thing. They said, oh, they will destroy schools because teachers will be on TV and kids will learn from home. And in theory, from a technological perspective, that was possible. But because they ignored this trade-based society where parents have to go to work, kids have to go to school, it's a big business, of course this never happened, you know. And that's why it will never happen with the internet either, because they are integrated into this society. You see, so from technological perspective, you could have made the education abundant like 100 years ago, or let's say 70 years ago, you know. But
Yeah. Maybe I have a question regarding the future, and that is, what do you guys imagine like abundance to be like in terms of social connection and stuff like that? So connecting with others and those types of things, in terms of having an abundance of that in the future.
I think you can take examples from different communities today around the world. So if you go, for example, to an island, take Hawaii for an example, Molokai. It has an abundance of mangoes and coconuts and bananas and a lot of great fruit, for example. And the people there are quite content in the way they live. They're not like, they're not really struggling to survive because they have an abundance of food. They have a lot of fruit, fish, and Molokai, for example, it's a small island. It's still a bit different than the rest of, definitely than the rest of America. And I think that from what I saw there, they're really social. They're happy to share the stuff that they have. When I lived on Hawaii, somebody had bananas. They had lots of bananas, and they said, "Sasha, after work, just go drive to my house. I'm not going to be there. Just take my bananas because I have so many bananas." And I was stoked. They took bananas every day, and whenever I had something to give, to that person, I would give them something too. So I think socially, people become much nicer in a world where they have access to what they need. Whereas, for example, if you live in a city where everything is scarce and you have to work, just to get one freaking banana, and it's hard for you to do that, you're going to be a lot more edgy with people. You're not going to trust people so much. You're not just going to give away your bananas. You just worked your ass off to get the banana.
I think in terms of abundant relationships, I think we need an abundant world of access and stuff so we can create quality relationships. Because relationships you can, in terms of abundance, I don't think it matters as much. It matters in terms of quality. Because us as humans, I don't know if we can have like more than 10 good friends, because it could be trickier even if in this kind of perfect kind of world. So I think a world of abundance will make quality relationships.
Yeah, because you're not needing anything from anybody else. You're only friends with that person because you enjoy spending time together.
Because in the future, people will wonder in the future, like in the past, how could like Theo be friends with Dima when Dima has this like so many cool musical instruments and Theo doesn't have them? They will think like it's hard to have even relationships. Like you have a car, I don't have a car. It's kind of shitty. Maybe I want a car.
Completely.
So, in abundant world, we would have a lot of stuff to share, but nobody will need it because everyone could have access.
Yeah.
Sharing won't be a thing.
Yeah, maybe sharing is relevant because I can take a musical instrument from whatever, not from Dima.
Yeah.
So no one.
But you cannot play like me.
Yeah, that's a good point. But if there are people online who can teach me, I don't need you.
Yeah, you have to pay.
If there is an abundance of them.
There will be abundance of money. Don't worry.
Yeah, because that's also a resource that we didn't talk about, the abundance of volunteers. It's not only about stuff, it's also about volunteers. Because you need help with something, we need volunteers as well to be abundant, in all kinds of areas that we cannot maybe automate.
Yeah, for sure.
And then on that point, I would just agree that a system that you have evidence of taking care of you and all the people around you. It's like this project is enough for me to volunteer for. So like I already know that's possible of humanity, that they can pour their time into something that they really believe in, and then on top of that is actually taking care of them and listening to the voice that they have.
Yeah, imagine how much stuff people will create if they will live in a world where they don't have to trade their energy and attention and so forth for other things. I mean, they will create a new kinds of domains in this world. I mean, even if you, like, people don't realize this, but we need so many other people, so many volunteers in this work, because it takes animals or insects. You need so many people to categorize them, and the ocean is unexplored, the outer space. We have so many things to do, but we pollute with shitty jobs instead of, like, I want to say that if we create a world of abundance, it's not like people would be like, oh, I'm lazy, what can I do now? I have no purpose in this world. Like, it's not going to be like that. Only simple-minded people in this society think like that because they know very little about the world.
I mean, there's so much to do. There's always so much. It's never ending. I don't know how you can even possibly, like, consider, you know, having access to everything that you want and sitting on the couch all day.
Definitely. Yeah, but you would then need a society as well that reinforces you to go out and explore and educate you in that regard. So it also comes like with a value shift in education, because just giving people access, like you said, is also not going to cut it. It's also all about changing people's values and giving them the love of life to then explore and dig into whatever they're interested in, because now they don't have to be dependent on their job, giving them income for survival and so on, or dependent on their family, or dependent on so many different factors that causes so much pain and suffering within this system and forces you to do stuff that you don't want to do.
It's ridiculous to think that people will become lazy in such a society.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous. I think,
Yeah.
nah, when I hear this argument, I'm like, you know, do you have 2 hours? Because I want to show you some cool stuff, you know. We have so much stuff that is not explored, so many problems, so many mysteries, so many are crazy, you know, it's crazy. People don't know about such things. They will think that, oh, I'm going to get fat and everything will come to me like food and I will watch TV all the time. No.
That's because today that's what they do on their day off,
Yeah.
you know, when they don't have to work.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
on the couch and they're here.
But none of us here have normal jobs, so maybe we don't understand them.
I wanted to kind of ask you guys, so if we took an example, say a phone or clothes, something like that, how would this abundance, you know, look from, you know, the production line, from the very beginning to getting the resources in the very beginning to distributing? How do you see it?
With clothes?
Take an example, yeah, clothes, electronics, or whatever you want.
Well, potentially with 3D printing, other technological advances, you might be able to decentralize it completely and print it in your home. Like same thing we discussed with food the other time. So that could be an option, or through nanotechnology potentially on the horizon that could make things much easier and effective. So localization, I would say, would be key in order to minimize the amount of energy used. So you could produce it locally with different means. Yeah.
I think that if we take all of the shit that we produce today, all of the waste, in this kind of more efficient future but abundant, you don't even have to mine for resources for a long time. Like if you take all of this shit that we throw away and you recycle it, maybe you don't even have to mine a lot for resources.
You don't need like child labor mining, you know?
Oh, that I think. Thank you. There you go.
I thought we would have an abundance of those.
Abundance of child.
Yeah.
Let's hope not.
Yeah.
If it's a trade-free society, then it shouldn't be like that, because there will be a trade for those kids. So you detect the problem there. You say, look, those kids have to work for something because they are forced to work. That's the problem.
No, maybe they have nothing to do, so that's why they go.
Then they are not slaves.
to the mines.
Yeah, that's true.
Then they do it for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, then that's a
Kids
okay.
love digging around in mud, so.
Black lung is my favorite.
Yeah, let's hope that's not going to happen. Well, we have automation.
Children robots.
The thing with clothes, for example, because that's actually interesting. It could be quite difficult, as far as I understood technologically, to create clothes without humans being involved and doing stuff, because they are so like a bit difficult to put together in an automated fashion. But I think people are inventive, like they invented like the International Space Station. Stuff like that. Probably they can solve this as well.
For sure. And just like you said, there's probably more than enough clothes already produced now for there to go around. The amount of shit that exists, if you just use it intelligently, would cover
And
everybody's
if we don't
needs.
have to change the clothes so often, because
Exactly.
There is a good comment on the chat about clothing. I can read it. A product can seem abundant like clothes, but in reality, if you have a body size outside of the norm, there is very limited option. Capitalism sells to non-existent people we need to try to be valued. So, and that's the thing with decentralization. When you will be able to just print the clothes you need, you won't have this problem anymore. It's like, if your body, you are super tall, or your heads legs are taller than normal, it's really hard today to find shoes for you, if you've got like really large legs. And if you've got access to 3D printing, it's not an issue anymore. You just print it.
yeah, it's a good point. That, for example, to give the same kind of example for another domain that I gave in a book, progeria. It's a very, very rare disease where kids get old very, very fast and they die at age 12 or so. And it was a documentary about a family who had a kid like that, Sam, and they were both doctors, and they started to get involved and try to find a treatment for progeria, because pretty much no one was interested in that. It was such a unique minority kind of thing that in this world you cannot make money out of that, So in this kind of work that we talk about, if people could get involved, like in the open source, like Dimas says, then you have, I think, more chances than today to make clothes or to research for a treatment and so forth. A doctor is not from another planet, it's still human. If you want to become a doctor, you can become a doctor and solve your kid's problem maybe, or advance the research.
And then also technologies have a huge help here, like this automated computer Watson, I think, which can prescribe you any medicine based on on your analysis. You can give him like blood analysis, urine analysis, and he can analyze it and just prescribe you a drug or create a unique one which will be special, suitable only for you, like especially for your needs.
Personalized.
And no doctor can do this today, So.
Yeah, I think we have to. I gave this example with Watson, but it's also that we have to be careful, because this is a company, and I've read about them, and they are quite exaggerating.
The idea.
Yeah, that's a perfect idea. Yeah, I love that idea, because if you take healthcare, instead of putting today you have a family doctor in most tribes in the world, and this family doctor has like hundreds of patients, and he has like 5 to 10 minutes for each patient, which is crazy. Instead of staying home, and diagnose yourself and through an AI, so then you can go to further tests. You have to go to a hospital today, you have to stay in line, you have to use a car. You see, this is another way of creating abundance to digitizing. I think it was another question. Where is the line for trade? If you do a DNA test to know your heritage, can they use the other available info without your consent? How do you prevent the use of the info when it's there? Well, today of course they use the data, because that's their business when you do such a test. That's why it's so cheap. Some are free, but they are not trade free. If you create a world of abundance like what we talk about, the idea is here to eliminate this need for trade, basically make trade obsolete. So in that sense, if you give data, your DNA, to your doctor, if the doctor doesn't have any, or the company or the group there, any interest to do something with your data, they are not going to do anything with your data. That's the idea. If someone will give me something, I will feel unequal, someone says.
That's me.
Ah, that's you.
I'm responding.
Okay.
But that's what I was saying is that trade kind of it's changing the values, the mentality that there needs to be. I need to profit off this person's data for me to keep doing what I'm doing. It's no, I just need to. This person is requesting a service, and I'm going to fulfill that because that's what I'm good at, or whatever. It's changing that mindset that their money needs to be made on this transaction happening here or exchange, and then that's very reinforced in this society. So even me receiving a gift, if I feel unequal to the other person, I want to balance that out. If there's a 4 on this side of the equation, I want to put 4 here, and that's very heavily reinforced by this society. Only recently, I'm kind of addressing that and that realizing that's even happening.
Yeah, but that's also not a trade, because if someone gives something to you without asking something in return, of course, this is just an act of kindness. If you feel, in a sense, obliged to give something back, that's your problem, But we are not talking about these kinds of things. These are not kind of trades.
Yeah, so that's like definitely just to do with me, but me visualizing like a gift as a trade, that's like how corrupted my view has been in this kind of living in the society for like 30 years. Is like that's how warped your thinking can get to that level.
I think what Cody means is that even we are in a such trade-based mind all the time, the whole society, so we cannot accept gifts anymore. When it somehow feel, we are like to give something back, to have this trade moment again, and it's so deep into us. So yeah, it's really hard. I know what Cody talking about. I had the same feeling some time ago, some years ago, and it took me a while I can learn to actually accept the help or accept the gifts and not giving something in return. And when I help somebody, I don't expect anything back, and people wants to give me money when I help them, and I never take them, because I said, no, if I would took money, I give you the service, and I'm not fucking giving you service, I'm helping you, that's it.
Yes.
Yeah, and it feels so good when you actually engage in those kinds of, in that kind of relationship, or when it's completely trade free. I had a lot of experience with this with couch surfing. I couch surfed all over the world, and people take me in for free, not expecting anything back. And it's I've showed up to someone's house and they gave me their car, like they just met me. They just gave me their car and they said, drop me off at work and then you can take my car and drive it around. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, okay, thanks. And it's amazing. And then I want to do the same thing for other people, and it feels good.
And some people will argue that perhaps those people who host you in their homes, they want something from you, because maybe if you behaved in a bad way, or if you were messy or something, they will say, out, I don't want you here, so only you can stay here only if you are maybe Christian, or maybe you pray before dinner, but these are things that we should, that's my point here, we should not concern about here. If you put a microscope on any idea, you'll find such weird kind of things, only if something is obvious, like you don't get food unless you are a Christian and you go to church, then that's a problem, that's a direct trade. I wanted to mention this.
Yeah, and I mean, even on couchsurfing, you can find those a lot. You can find tons of guys that are trying to just get hot chicks to stay with them just because they want to look at hot chicks, But you can easily see that that's what's going on, and I just don't stay with them, So the real.
They want just to look.
Oh, whatever. It depends on the person, But I mean. But the essence, and I hate when people do that, especially with couch surfing, because it's like it ruins the entire idea. And I mean, not just with chicks, some people like in poor countries, not even just poor countries, but it happens where they kind of expect you to, I don't know, help them out, pay for something. And I've had that experience once in Sri Lanka, where I had to sit down with a person, and because he was asking my dad to pay for something. My dad and I stayed couch surfing with a family in Sri Lanka, and he basically was trying to get him to pay for something, and my dad didn't have any money, and neither did I. And the point of couch surfing is that it's supposed to be a trade-free interaction, and I had to sit down with him and have a real talk about this, because I was also accepting hosts, a month before that, when I was living on $2 or $3 a day. and I never ask anything in return, you know, and that's supposed to be the way couch surfing is. But of course, like Theo said, you put a microscope on it, you can always find.
Yes, because even those guys who want hot chicks, right? They lack something. They lack those hot chicks. They have to trade for that. They have to. In this society, it could be very challenging. You know, you have to. If you don't have money, you don't. It's quite difficult. You have to have a nice car. You have to. You know, it's a lot of trade. And then they say, oh look, it's easy. I have an apartment. I can rent, but I want some hot chicks. You know, it's a trade.
How we can
Because
get
the
abundance of
society
hot
even
chicks?
makes
How can get abundance of hot chicks? I don't know. You come up with a solution.
Yeah, I think
Opportunity. It's a value
values
system.
first, and secondly, it's technologies, which is
It's a
very
problem of
important.
values.
Sex robots and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, sex robots are right.
I think what is more plausible is if we have more time to explore other cultures and meet other people, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shift of values in today's society. Like, today's society makes sex scarce because basically women and sex and like their freaking, you know, private parts are like scarce resources, and that makes like men chase after them, and they basically like run away or play games because of this, because you know their resources are like taboo in this culture.
And you
if we
can
were, you know,
trade
a
with
much
them
different, much open society.
in the
Yeah,
society.
exactly. And then it creates so many more problems and like real deep psychological problems for many people. You know, and it creates like insanity. It just makes you know society go even more insane.
On both
Whereas,
parts.
you know, if they had a different mentality. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's the same part like
So
we
it's all
mentioned with
about a shift in
relationships.
values. Yeah.
Completely. How can there be any like uncorrupted relationships within the system? Everything to some extent has some form of trade always in the back of it, because you will be staying in a house. Who's paying for the house? How much is it? This, that. All of it has a number on it, and all of it has some kind of.
That's why marriage is such a tricky business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause
So if you had So if you had access to an abundance of things, you would only be with the person just because you really enjoy spending time with them. And I think that's really important because that will actually bring real value to your life.
Completely.
Yeah. How it is today that, you know, some people are together, like this chick is with that guy for the car, I mean, or something like that. This is such a fucked up value system. It's really backwards. Like
Status or a house, and then they get stuck together because they bought things together.
exactly, yeah. And you're in a business together.
Yeah.
Completely. That's how it is all over. And some people go to other countries and kill other people also just because of trade, because they believe in a nation or believe in the country that they have to kill and so on.
Okay. Do you want to say more about the topic, or we can just talk a bit about the news and then?
I think let's go for the news.
Yeah.
Okay. So first we have our book, The Money Game and Beyond, where we talk about abundance. So if you want to read it, we go in more details about the topic. We have a documentary as well from Videonit. It's The Choice is Ours. I recommend that documentary is from TVP, and they talk about abundance as well. I'm not going to load the website now, but you can find it on videonit.com. And I have a few news, not many news this week. So, for example, let me see if it loads. Okay, it's an article about, it's a book basically, or it's basically a paper, a scientific paper, looking at the impact of citizen scientists on science to see their effect. It's something that we talk about here. We talked today about, because it's human resources. Like, look at these volunteers. Even today we have volunteers who go and do science basically without having any training in science, just because they are guided by scientists, you know, and they can do a lot of research. So it's interesting to see their impact on science. And another news, it's about the release of Riot. Riot, I want to talk about this a little bit because it's again about abundance. This Riot is like Slack or like Skype in a way. You know, those messengers that many people are using, but this one is decentralized and is trade free. Basically, you can use Riot and you can install it on your own server. That's the beauty of your open source, and this is how it creates abundance. Because a group of people, like the people behind Riot, they create this software and they give it away as trade free, and you can take it, you can improve it, you can make it your own. That's how the society should work like. So yeah, it's a cool idea. This is one example. Okay, if anyone else wants to talk about anything, did you read the news, or I can go to them?
I did. I guess the next one is the 3D printed snacks or whatever. So like, I think she's using food waste or food that they would throw away, and then like turning that into, I guess, a edible printing medium.
Yes, delicious dishes.
Yeah, and then I guess the food is baked, so it's basically creating like long shelf life lasting healthy food out of I guess mostly waste. I think they're saying like 75%, so like 3/4 what would normally go in the trash, I guess, would be remade into another dish with 3D printing. Yeah,
Very cool.
That's interesting approach. Okay, we have one about again, it's from Citizen Scientists. They have like a library day. As far as I understood, they have this day where they do like a collaboration with libraries to spread this kind of citizen scientist idea and to make like some kind of workshops, not workshops, but all kinds of activities in terms of citizen scientists. And the idea of library actually is very interesting because I think at the core is what we talk about. This idea of let's have like a free place for our citizens to go and have access to all kinds of things like the internet and so forth. So we have to expand that kind of mindset. So it's something that we even see in today's society to a certain extent.